Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project and Magnetic Reversal News, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Tuesday, January 7th, 4 p.m. Mountain Time 2019. The models are showing heavy snow moving south into Texas. Still heavy snow, and it's widening. Florida's being left out of the picture, but the big story is the Puerto Rican earthquake. We'll get to that if you stick with us. Keep calm. It's boom time. Colorado starts 2020 with abundant mountain snow and moisture, 22% above normal in my state. Snow squall warning issued for the Northwest, Lower Peninsula, in a new type of weather alert, the squall alert. A snow squall warning is issued for 9 counties in northern Lower Michigan this morning. It's a relatively new type of warning we talked about when it came out about a year or two ago. A warning type called the snow squall warning has been tested in a few areas across the U.S. after the last 2 years. Now the National Weather Service has declared it will officially use the snow squall warning. And there's your warning, and those are the squalls. Take a look. It's working out. Updates: areas of heavy snow west of Washington. Trying to shift east where it's raining. Washington, D.C. We already know Washington State's buried. Worst conditions and most snow accumulation expected west and northwest of Washington, D.C. today. Winter weather advisory from district to areas north and west from noon to 7 p.m. School closings and early dismissals. West of Interstate 95, precipitation will change to snow and may be heavy at times, especially through 5 p.m. Low visibility and slick spots on roads could develop, especially in colder areas along the roads of the Beltway. There will be accidents. That's why Stafford and Spotsylvania schools are closing early as winter storm closes in. Just an update I found there for you. Winter storm following this will encase a 1,700-mile stretch of the U.S. in ice and snow. A storm will serve as a reality check for millions of Americans this weekend. Following a stretch of spring-like warmth in the east, wintry precipitation is forecast to overspread a 1,700-mile corridor in the United States, spanning from central U.S. to the northeast region. And AOL can't write an article. Snow and ice threat to spread from the plains to the Midwest and New England late in the week. Look at those spooky. What is that signal? Whoa, it's like a creepy ice creature. So check out the links below. Here's your Friday night forecast. KC looking like a nightmare, as well as Chi-Town, icy, down into Oklahoma City as well. Saturday's forecast not looking much better. The entire east, very moist. Lightning in Nashville. Sunday's forecast, the beast will move east and will cover the northern northeast in snow. Here's your forecast. Wednesday through Friday, if you're looking for snow cover, the northwest is the best. Light snow in the central and southern Rockies. But from British Columbia down into Oregon, hello! Heavy numbers. Big digits. Let's check out the analyzer. Here's your last 48 hours, and you can see hundreds of square miles with over 30 inches of snow up here in Seattle. In the Seattle area. I'm sorry, Seattle has no snow. Here, see it's in the white? I mentioned that it's by Seattle once, and someone thought I meant in the city. There is no snow in Seattle. That's here, this dot. If you go east 50 miles, there's 3 feet of snow. And if you go north, you're still buried. Big winners are the Adirondacks with 8 to 10 inches, 12 inches in some areas, and then 12 to 18 inches in northern Vermont and New Hampshire, as we predicted. Let's check the new models. Let's move away from this Texas boom, which the Texas storm will begin right there. The beginning of next weekend. That's Friday, January 17th through the 18th. The southeast will be covered with several events, but that's far out. Let's see what's happening now. Tuesday, Wednesday, heavy snow in the mountains in the northwest. As that snow in the northeast finishes up, take a look. Could have 8 to 10 inches in some areas of West Virginia, maybe a foot in the mountains, and then general light snow throughout the entire northeast from this system, as the back end is quite cool. And then there's that Midwest system they're talking about for next weekend. Here's your Friday, Saturday, Sunday forecast. Monday, Tuesday of next week, Thursday of next week, and then that Texas storm, the nexus of the schmexus, getting buried in up to 16 inches of snow. 12 to 10, probably. That's my official position. British Columbia, my official position is do not travel. Travel not recommended as hazardous. Winter storm bears down Tuesday, January 7th. Drivers are being urged to avoid travel on dangerous mountain passes, while heavy rain bears down on the south coast of BC. Let's hear what the meteorologists have to say.
Storm parade is continuing across BC, so our heavy snow moving inland, coastal rain continuing throughout the day.
I can't get out of here. I'm stuck. Like Chuck. I'm sorry about that, folks. Clearly, this precipitation forecast does not want to work with us here. So, systems training into the BC coast, one after another, have prompted a host of rainfall and winter storm warnings across the southern tier of the province. Significant alpine and interior valley snow, along with heavy rain on the coast, will make for challenging travel conditions through midweek, to say the least. Look at the amount of rain on the coast here. Over 100 millimeters in red. There's going to be extreme flooding potential there. And then as you go up into the mountains, heavy snow, avalanche warning and risks on the high passes. Here's your avalanche danger rating. Extreme in almost all areas. High to extreme. Take a look. Links will be below. Stay home. Now let's get to the Puerto Rico earthquake. Magnitude 6.4 knocks out power, kills at least one. And this is after a 5.8 happened just 24 hours prior. Now, if you're wondering about the intensity scale, the Richter scale, a 5.8 versus a 6.4, each tick up, and this is killing my tongue, is a factor of 100. So this is 6 times greater than the 5.8, the magnitude. 600% stronger. If you go up 6 clicks, it's 100% each click. So 5.8 to 5.9, 5.9 is 100% stronger, or a factor of 100. And because of the poor infrastructure and building codes, an earthquake like this near the shoreline is going to wreak havoc. Now let's learn a little bit about the geology of the region. Here is Puerto Rico sitting above the ocean with a few other islands that stick out. And it is bounded to the north by the Muertos Trough. I'm sorry, to the south by the Muertos Trough, and to the north by the Puerto Rican Trench. And many people are worried about this tilted platform because there's evidence of landslide on this platform to the western side. And this submarine landslide waiting to happen would cause a massive tsunami to push towards Florida and absolutely devastate the entire state. Now, luckily, these earthquakes are not happening in the trench. They're happening over here to the south in the Muertos Trough, right in the region I'm circling. And we're going to take a look at that. If they were happening over here in the trench, then there could be potential for tsunami, landslides, submarine landslides, which are called turbidity currents or turbidites. And that would develop a large tsunami that would push off towards Florida, which has a very short distance to travel and would be a gigantic wave. These quakes happening in the Muertos Trough are probably never going to kick off a landslide on this side of the island. And just to give you a little idea, I'm going to do a flyby underwater here. And we're going to just look at what it actually looks like in that Puerto Rican trough. Moving along the island arc system, which is called the Caribbean arc there, Puerto Rico, there, and this would be that slide area. If I can just back this up. So Puerto Rico is up here on this very steep slope sticking above the water. You can see a few other islands sticking above the water here. And that would be the area in question where that landslide would happen. So an earthquake down here in the Puerto Rican Trough, landslide happens, and tsunami goes off to the right towards Florida. I'll leave you links to this video. Your own submarine. Bam, boom, boom. So awesome video there and animation to get you up to speed with what's going on in that region. If you have any geologic questions, the earthquakes are happening in the Muertos Trough, not the Puerto Rican Trench. And the danger for dangerous tsunamis, which would affect Florida, would be if a large quake happened down here in the trench, not necessarily the trough. This is called an accretionary wedge or an island arc, where you have one plate moving one way and another direction moving another, and there's this wedge that's formed. Typically volcanic in nature when they're called island arcs. And here you see the Antilles arc, the arc in question. And Puerto Rico's sticking up. There's your geology lesson for the day. Now let's check out the seismos. Guys, I have my blue blocker glasses on here by Gunner. They're in the store if you want to go get them. Pretty easy to find where the Geiger counters and the UV meters are. Also blue blockers. These block 70% of the blue light. And because I stare at screens for 8 hours a day, I thought it would be pertinent for me to get a pair. If you want to get a pair and support the channel, I put the Gunners in there. I did my own research, and these happen to be some of the best made ones. They're not cheap. They start at like $40 and go up, depending on the style. But they're really quality made. They're made of glass, and they're excellent. It actually, the screens look better when I have these on than just my natural vision. So seismically, we have some interesting quakes of note. We have some seismic activity by Sinabung here, 6.2, which could mean that Sinabung is going to become active again. It's anyone's guess what that means. Very nearby, 16 kilometers away from Sinabung. So Sinabung might be the next boom boom. Just keep a close eye on that. And let's just hone in here on Puerto Rico and see what's going on. We have a Ridgely, Tennessee quake associated with the New Madrid. But we can see here a whole series of aftershocks, which is good news because this event is probably over. Because each of the aftershocks is successively less, and there are hundreds of them, we can say that this event is probably done with a very high probability. And again, the main quake offshore, thankfully, if it had been over here, there would have been way more damage. But the damage region is probably in a big, right here by the coast. I'm drawing a line around it. So not all of the island affected. And again, an earthquake would have to happen up in this region near the Puerto Rican Trough to actually set off one of those submarine landslides and create a tsunami. There was some very minor tsunami activity in this region, up to 10 inches approximately, very locally. So there is your seismic update on the Puerto Rican quake. Where do we go from here? Massive earthquake swarms signaled the birth of a volcano as huge magma chamber empties onto the seafloor. Now, this is the Mayotte quakes we've been watching off of Madagascar in that region. And here's the study in Nature Geoscience. Drainage of a deep magma reservoir near Mayotte inferred from seismicity and deformation. So there is magma moving, there's deformation and seismicity, and here's the paper. So we could see have a new volcano forming here, and the dynamics of this magma deep in the Earth's crust are difficult to capture. It's only a hypothesis, but it's a hypothesis they've been sticking with, and we do have volcanic activity offshore of Mayotte, so we're going to be keeping a close eye on that. Worldwide volcano news update. We have Sangay at 20,000, Krakatoa, Dukono, Carinci, Reventador, Sakurajima, and Kirishima. Shishalden blasting to 20,000. Swanoshima exploded today. Popo has a little bit of a puff. Sabancaya puffing to 25,000. And here we see Carinci in Sumatra giving a little bit of a show, as well as the uptick in Mayotte and the new paper that's out, and the big 6.2 near Cinnabon. We've got a lot on our plate. Now, this was just brought to our attention. Someone from New Zealand sent me this about a magnetic shock wave that happened yesterday. I checked out the telemetry, and there is nothing to suggest that this has anything to do with space weather. This is pure telluric current in the Earth, which we're learning more about, and it also, these currents are what triggers the large earthquakes. So here on telemetry, nothing abnormal happened right at that time at about 1900 UTC, just a little blip. But here, clearly you can see the magnetic shock wave January 6th from the Polar Light Center in Lofton, Norway. It could be associated, and this area could be directly tellurically connected to Puerto Rico, and this is simply a precursor to that. It's anyone's guess. We're learning together. Moving right along, how the 2019 Australian bushfire season compares to other fire disasters. Now, if you want to know the facts, watch the interviews I do with Giles over at CF Gingara, and you will be up to speed like nobody's business. Because if you read articles like this, it's going to disinform you. It's going to indoctrinate you. And I'll give you a good example. Right here, there's a chart. Hectares burned in recent fires. And the reason the shocking size of the fires. Here you can see the shocking size of the fires because they start the fires on this chart back in 2009. Now, that doesn't seem like a very large data set. So I just went and looked for a larger data set. And while I was doing that, I found out that just in the last week, 24 Australians were arrested for deliberately setting these fires. There is no mention of that in this article that is based on fear, climate change, and global warming. But the fear and the climate change and the global warming are clearly affecting people and making them light fires based on all the data. But if we look at the actual fire data, and I'll have to move myself right here. Take a look. Their data set starts right here, down in the right corner at 2009, so they can show an increase. But look at what they didn't show you. They didn't show you the huge fires back in 38, 42, in 66, 1982. Someone is holding evidence from you. And the reason is because this does not fit the narrative of increasing fires that are your fault. The fact that 3,500 structures burned in 1938 would mean that an equivalent fire these days would require 20,000 structures to burn because of population increase. Just 1,400 structures have burned, which put this fire somewhere right in this vicinity right now. Clearly an increase over the last few years, but cherry picking extraordinaire. If you want a master class on cherry picking, hello, read the article. The shocking size of Australian fires shown in the most limited scope possible. We don't have time to look for data. We're trying to scare you on the last couple years. Pay your taxes. The sad truth about our boldest climate targets is we'll never meet them because no one's following them. And even if they did, they would only affect global temperature by 0.01 degree, if any. And I don't think they would affect it at all, my personal opinion, because it's a ruse. Just like the very people responsible for not allowing controlled burns in Australia, they're responsible for burning your houses and your country. The policymakers. Not you, not CO2, not fossil fuel. Arsonists plus policymakers equal disaster. Hey, have you seen the new Oppenheimer Ranch Project 5G blocker? It blocks 100% of all radiation coming into my cranium so I can think clearly. These will be available soon as soon as we tweak out the design. I'm digging it. Now, did you know that all media, corporations, banks, and politicians can be sued and charged with Article 3 of the Genocide Convention for complicity? It's time we step up and start suing these pricks for the pricks that they are. And that's today's or tonight's first boom, depending on where you are. 1.5 degrees. Let's sue them. Now, the Colorado drone mystery might finally be solved, and it's not what you were thinking. It's not what we were thinking, but it's much worse. There has been some information that has been leaked that these drones are flying over nuclear missile silos. In fact, over 1,500 silos in northeastern Colorado and southern Nebraska exist, some of which people are not even aware of. So if you own property here, you may have a nuclear missile on your property, and the U.S. government is worried about terrorism, whether it be domestic or foreign. There must be some information that there is some type of cyber war going on where foreign entities may be trying to launch these missiles. And the only way to do it is to probably get there and hardwire it. And the government knows this because they have fail-safes. So they need these drones in place to monitor the region. And as soon as the sun sets, they're looking for people moving in this region near these silos. Now, are these drones equipped with retaliatory mechanisms? What I mean by that, lasers or sound devices or even weapons of some sort to stop an assault on one of these silos? If this is flying in your backyard, you should want to know more, and you should demand the truth. So we're going to be covering this as the truth is unfolded, but that is the closest we can get to the truth currently. These drones are monitoring very antique, very old nuclear weapons, which are still in the ground and pointed at Russia. Well, in North Korea, maybe. But that should scare the out of you. Remember, we can sue these pricks, but once the nukes come out of the silos, we can't sue them. It's all over, Johnny. Solar cycles end with terminator events that herald the new era of activity on the sun. We covered this a year ago when the paper came out. It's time to revisit it because that terminator event has begun. Solar terminator events, one of the sun's biggest mysteries, has just been solved. Well, they think they have. And if you can visualize with me, if this is the equator of the sun, so you got to turn the screen a little, you got to turn it. There is an energetic wave that hits the equator during solar minimum and then pushes back out to initiate the next cycle. Solar minimum, terminator event, and then the new solar cycle begins as the wave moves out to the outer latitudes. Boom! So it's almost the sun breathing. It's half of a solar cycle. Solar cycles last 22 years, and they include the full in and out and back in again. And each of those ins and outs and ins is half of a polar solar reversal and one sunspot cycle. Which, by the way, we're entering the next sunspot cycle. It probably hasn't begun yet, but we are at the very bottom of the cycle right now. Typically lasts for a few months. So check out the paper about the visualization and the terminator events, and it has nothing to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger or a massive flare coming out of the equator. It's not that fantastic. It's just a mechanism to explain the moving sunspots from the equator out to the upper latitudes. So it's like, boom, equator, solar minimum, and then back out. I hope you got that. China quietly confirms a third CRISPR-edited baby has been born. And they made this one have 9 eyes, 3 heads. No, they didn't. Who knows? Nobody knows what got CRISPR'd in that baby. A repeating fast radio burst source localized to a nearby spiral galaxy. Aliens. Just a few hundred light years away. Now, if you're planning on coming to LeakCon, we're going to have one of the top alternative scientists on fast radio bursts presenting there, Adrian D'Amico. He's going to be talking about censorship, government cover-up, and disinformation, just to name a few of the topics. And maybe you'll be able to talk to him about these fast radio bursts and what they actually are or what they might mean. Tickets available soon. We're working on the promo packs now. China lander releases data of high-resolution images of the dark side of the moon. So for all the people that think we have never been to the moon, or there is no dark side of the moon because the Earth is flat, then these are some excellent CGI pictures which you can enjoy. Or you can believe that China landed on the dark side of the moon and these are actually pictures of the moon, and they're investigating the micronova, the microtectites, and the glass on the surface of the moon, which is probably part of the sun's shell, because for over 60 years the powers that be have been working on this catastrophe problem, and they've been hiding it under the guise of scientific inquiry. Total BS. Rich people protecting rich people to make regular people poorer. Now, how to launch a camera into space? It just takes a few $100s and a couple of cool, knowledgeable people to pull it off. I've run all of the hyperbolic trajectories from here and contacted the FAA for approval to launch our first ever space satellite. The only problem is we're not going to get to space. We're going to get to the edge of space, and then our balloon is going to explode, which we will then be able to recover in the San Luis Valley. Because if I launch it here from the ranch on the day that I have asked for, then the balloon will travel up into space, explode, and land 76 nautical miles from here at a heading of 76 degrees, which is somewhere in the North San Luis Valley, which I could easily recover using GPS because there is cell phone coverage there. So if you like the idea of us launching a camera into space and actually filming the curvature of the Earth, let me know what you think below. Let's get to the bottom of this flat Earth. I'm very confused. Guys, I got these gunners in the store. There's all different varieties. There's the pair, the first one, the one I got. Blue light blocking gunners. Let's see how much they cost in the store. Shall we? I pushed the button. Nothing's happening. Well, there it goes. It's happening now. We'll never get there. War is when the government tells you who the bad guy is, takes your money, and hands it back to the rich people. Revolution, you keep your money. Yep. That's where I hope it's happening. Hope you got something out of the video. These glasses will never load, but they are available. And soon, the Oppenheimer Ranch Project 5G blocker, EMF protector, or tinfoil hat, whatever you want to call it. All available soon. I hope you bought a shovel, especially if you live in Central Texas. Be safe. That's Bill.